Hello, and happy Cinco de Mayo. It is, in fact, May 5th, Tuesday. I'm Danny Gregory, and this is the live drawing party. I had a couple days off, and I'm feeling renewed, refreshed, and ready to draw. I hope you are too. It is spring. Spring is coming. It's here. I mean, in Phoenix, it feels like more than spring. But as you can hear, the birds are going berserk, and the flowers are popping up all over the place, and hopefully they are too. So, thank you for joining me. Thank you for tolerating my absence. Yes, it is time to draw again. I want to thank all of you, by the way, who signed up for my email and then read what I wrote and wrote back such incisive, insightful, intelligent responses. And I spent Sunday morning sitting outside and writing responses to all of you who were kind enough to write back to me. If you haven't signed up for my list yet, let me just pop up the thing. sketchbook.com/Danny's-list. If you sign up for it, I will periodically. I've been actually pretty good about it. I've been pretty regular, sending one out every Friday and basically sharing with you my musings. Last week I was talking about the whole nature of criticism, comments, feedback, thumbs up, likes. How do we feel about all that stuff, and how important is it to our art making, and how do we deal with the problems that it might present? And a lot of you had some great insights into it, and it was just so nice to be able to have a dialogue with you in yet another form. So thank you all for receiving. Now, some of you say you didn't receive them. Well, if you didn't receive them, check your junk mail. I definitely sent it to you. If you signed up, I sent it to you. And if you didn't get it, talk to your mailman. So, thank you all for joining me here. And the M82, thank you for wishing me a nice weekend. I did have a nice weekend. It was nice here. It was hot. It was hot. It wasn't as bad as it can be, and as it probably will be, but we'll see. I will learn, as I am now a transplanted New Yorker, come Phoenician. That's what they call people in Phoenix, I think, or at least in ancient. No, that's probably not incorrect, right? Phoenicia. I don't know. If you're from Phoenix, maybe you can tell me. All right, well, good. So I wanted to talk today about the reasons that we make art. All of us, even those of you who haven't yet begun to make art, what are the reasons that we're going to be making art? For those of you who've made it for years, for those of you who are kind of learning the basics, for all of us, what's the reason? What are we trying to get out of doing it? And I think there's a lot of different things, of course. For me, the original impetus behind my art explorations were therapeutic, I would say, to find almost a form of meditation and a way of learning about myself and my situation by focusing my mind while making art. Over time, my reasons for making art have varied, or I was going to say evolved, but I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think they've varied. Some of it's just for the sake of play, to have fun. Drawing is really fun, if you let it be. If your inner critic lets you let it be. To have a time to just kind of recapture the feelings that we had when we were in first grade and we picked up a box of crayons. And another reason is I think, to say something. It may not be something specific, or it may not be something that you can articulate verbally, which is the reason that you're doing it to make art. It may just be a feeling that's inside of you. And making art is a way of taking that feeling in your brain, in your chest, wherever it resides, and focusing on it and sort of manifesting it in some external form. Right? So that's another reason that we make art, and that's one of the ones I wanted to talk about today, is how do we make something that means something? Because I think that there comes a point when we go beyond the kind of development of skill. And this is another reason for making art. I would call it a fourth reason, which is we want to get better at it. We want to learn new ways of doing it. So we're practicing. We're trying stuff out. We're taking classes. We're buying new materials. And over time, we are developing new skills and honing them. But that's insufficient to me as a reason for doing it. Because ultimately, I see art as a tool to accomplishing something else. It's not, it is a valuable pastime, and you can leave it at that. It is a way of developing skills, and you can leave it at that. It is a way of passing time, ruminating, getting perspective, and you can not go beyond that. But I think it's also an opportunity to go deeper with your feelings. Excuse me. Sorry, there's a lot of pollen in the air today, and I'm getting a little choked up. It's a reason to take what you feel and make it into something. And so what I wanted to do today was just talk about my own experience in doing that, and how it doesn't really matter what is the subject of your art. Like, I've shown you examples of how a self-portrait can be an opportunity for self-exploration and for recording your various moods. But I think you can take any subject you want, or even a subject at random, and you can project onto it, or extract from it, or engage with it in such a way that you bring out these feelings. And for me, today's subject is going to be shoes. Why shoes? Well, I'll explain in a minute. But what I'd like you to do today, as you draw with me, is to find a subject for yourself that can be in some way significant as a thing to dialogue with about these feelings that you're having. I mean, we're all feeling a lot these days. These are very emotional times. What are the fears that we have? The anxieties, the concerns, the discoveries, perhaps the love that we're feeling for other people. There's just a lot that's going on with us. And I'm finding that when I'm making art, that I'm making stuff that looks and feels differently to me than perhaps it used to. And I want to kind of, as they say, lean into that feeling. So I want you to think of whatever it is you want to use as a trigger, as the sand that you're going to drop into your inspirational oyster, and just pick that object and put it in front of you, And then pick whatever art materials feel right to you right now. This is something you might want to start now while we're talking. It might be something you want to think about later on after we're done talking. It's up to you. But, I think it's important for us to go beyond learning techniques and instead allow ourselves to be expressive. Because the thing about learning techniques is, I think at its core, the purpose of learning techniques when it comes to this kind of matrix I'm talking about is to give us confidence. When you feel like you know how to use a material, you know how to draw, you know how to add dimension, you know how to use color, you're able to push that into the background and drive in automatic. And your focus then becomes on the journey and on the destination rather than on the vehicle that you're using, to bludgeon a metaphor. Right? So if we're, as beginners particularly, spending a lot of time worrying about our materials, we're never going to be able to get past that to having the real benefits of art making, which is the feelings and the outlet. And I propose to you that maybe that technique doesn't matter at all. Maybe you don't need to know any of those things to tap into the most important part of art making. That's why I think, for instance, outsider art has so much emotional resonance. It's so powerful because outsider artists, and I think there are other terms for outsider art now. I forget what the new term is for it, but to me, an outsider is somebody who wasn't trained professionally, doesn't truck in the verbiage of the art world, but is simply somebody who has a burning need to make something and makes it. And they'll grab whatever's needed to do that. So, that's I think why we have to stop obsessing and judging. Obsessing over whether we're doing it right, over whether we have the right pen, over whether we've taken enough lessons, over whether we have enough talent, and transcend all that to just start doing it. Just start doing it. Get that feeling and get it on paper. If you need to throw that piece of paper away at the end of it, do so. But transcend this stage of preparation. And also suspend the judgment that is the most superficial form of judgment, and that is, does it look like the thing I wanted it to look like? That's the least of it. You can buy a disposable camera for $10, if you can find one, that can take a picture of anything and it looks just like the real thing. That's not a huge accomplishment. It may seem like it if you can't do it, but it's not the main purpose. The purpose is to transcend that and to get at what is really behind your feelings, is really behind your work. So I think instead you need to put your energy into accessing your emotions, your feelings, your stories, and feeling focused on them in this moment. Because if you do so, and if you trust your mechanisms, if you trust your mark-making skill or ability or just resources, if you trust that, those feelings can flow out. But if you're blocking that process with anxiety and judgment and concern about what others will say and fear about whether or not you know how to do it, and wondering what it will look like. All those blockages in the stream deaden the effect. Okay? So that brings me back to shoes. So shoes to me, so FR asks, does art always have to convey a message? I don't think art ever has to convey a message. We're not in the business of propagandism. It's not about a message. This isn't necessarily something you are saying to anybody else. It isn't like you're saying, you know what, the world is a hopeless, dark place, so let me make a painting with a lot of dark colors, and then somebody will look at it and they will take away from it my message that I embedded in this piece of art. That's not what I'm talking about. That may be the function of some kinds of artists. That may be what art historians tell you artists do. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having a feeling, picking up a pencil, doing a drawing of a thing, and allowing that feeling in you to come out. You're not sending a message to anyone with this. You might. Somebody might come along and look at it and go, I know just what you mean. I know how you feel. And that can often be a great side benefit to this process. But the real thing we're talking about is doing it for you. So you can have this experience. It's an experiential thing, not about the end result. Okay? It may end up with a beautiful piece of art that has great value and speaks to the world, and everybody is moved by it, and everybody knows exactly what you meant. That may happen, but that can't be your goal. Your goal has to be authenticity. Your goal has to be in connection with you and yourself, okay? So art doesn't always have to convey a message. It can. It can convey a message. But that's not the point. You know, I think we're taught that there are themes and schools of art, and all those things are incredibly important, and that if you aren't really in connection with that, then somehow you're lesser. That's nonsense. That's something that was created by people who sell art in order to structure it, in order to put it into categories. That's the purpose of that. It has nothing to do with you or me. So don't worry about that part of it. Sorry to jump onto it, but... So, Danny, Chen, how could a random object contain my feelings and emotions? I find it difficult. All right. So I'll stop dithering about that and get more specific. Let's talk about shoes. I find that shoes are somehow fraught with significance. It's not that I'm a foot fetishist, but I mean, let me show you this. Let me show you this shoe. Let me show you these shoes. Okay, so these are one of the two pairs of shoes that I brought with me when I left New York in order to go on a mini vacation, and ended up in quarantine here in Phoenix. Okay, so these shoes are, you know, they're Sperry boat shoes. And I've basically been wearing them when I do wear shoes, which is not all the time. But these shoes have come to me to represent my experience with the coronavirus. This is an object that you look at it and might say, "This is a ratty old pair of boat shoes, who cares?" I feel like I want to keep these shoes the rest of my life as a incredibly powerful souvenir, you know? Like I remember, I don't know if you've ever been to, I think it's the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. It might be that. And that, one of the things that they have there is they have piles of the personal belongings that were left behind by the victims who were killed in Auschwitz. Piles of shoes, piles of suitcases, piles of spectacles. And they're enormously emotional when you look at them. Those objects have enormous power to them. Okay? Now, this doesn't have to just do with trauma and disaster, but let me show you some of my favorite pieces of shoe art, if you will. Okay? Let me start here. So this is one of my favorite paintings. It is in the Metropolitan Museum in New York City. One day you'll be able to visit it. And it's a painting of a pair of shoes by Vincent van Gogh. And they are just so full of emotion to me. They're humble. They're a little beaten up. They're very sweet. I think they're just beautiful. And so many of my favorite artists drew shoes. It just happens. This is one of Andy Warhol's prints. Andy Warhol, when he was an illustrator before he became a famous pop artist, he drew a lot of shoes. And in fact, there's a book of shoes drawings that he did. He did shoes for advertising clients. But again, I think there's an enormous amount of emotion in this shoe, even though it's probably done for an ad. I think it's still very beautiful. Another one of my favorite artists, Ronald Searle. This is a drawing that he did, but look at this clown's shoes. I mean, yes, they're funny, they're long shoes, but also I think that they're more than that. They have a lot of emotion to them. They have a lot of personality to them. Like so much of Searle's stuff, they're based on an incredible line quality that he has, but I think they're just beautiful. Some of you who have taken either the course beginning or have taken the our course called Artist Boot Camp will have seen me do this demonstration. This is a painting, drawing that I do on camera about my son's shoes. These are my son's shoes that he used in art school. They're spattered with paint. They're beaten up. And to me, they represented just the work that he did, and also the feeling that I had as his dad, the sense of pride that I had. And I don't know, there were just a lot of things that I can't necessarily articulate now, but, there are these feelings in there that I look at this thing. I don't know if it means anything to you, but I look at them and they feel something to me. Here's another drawing that I did of shoes. This drawing was published in my book, which is called A Kiss Before You Go, and it's about it's the diary essentially that I kept over the year after my first wife Patty passed away. And this is a story about this pair of shoes that Jack and I bought together. And we both like these shoes, and our feet are kind of similar in size. He wears a 12 and a half, I wear an 11 and a half. These shoes were 12, so they didn't fit either of us perfectly, but we shared them. We literally shared the same pair of shoes. And when I drew that shoe and I drew this page in my journal, it really summarized to me, what we were going through together, my son and I, in this year, how we were healing and how we were getting through this experience. So, again, these are all objects that I didn't try to sort of make them feel pathetic or emotional or anything. I just kind of looked at them and drew. That's what I've been doing. I started this yesterday. I started to draw yesterday on my iPad. Let me just get it here. I started to draw those shoes that I showed you. And, it wasn't the kind of drawing that I thought I was going to do at first, honestly. I mean, I think I wanted to do something perhaps that was a bit simpler, but somehow I got into this very cross-hatchy textural sort of thing. I mean, it's like a drawing that doesn't entirely look like something that I would do, I think, in some ways. But that's what came out of me, was this drawing. And, I spent some time after dinner last night just looking at these shoes and drawing them. I'm going to switch to the actual iPad view so you can see it a bit more closely. And I'll zoom in, and you can see, it has a lot of detail. I somehow managed to have scribbled across it. I'm not sure how I managed to do that. I'll get rid of that later on. But maybe that's part of it. Maybe I need to have that scribbly effect in there too. But yeah. I feel like this is a drawing I want to spend a lot of time on, because I feel like each of these little marks is somehow all these things that I've been going through, all these things you've been going through too, right? Like all the kind of ups and downs, the cuts, the back and forths, the newness. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my wife and I are in this very nice place that we hastily moved into. We literally picked it up one day because we just realized we would not be able to go back home to New York for an indeterminate amount of time, and we had to make some other plans. But it's one more sort of unknown, and yet these shoes, which came with me, and they've been my constant companion, they somehow have picked up that resonance. All right. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm not suggesting that you draw your shoes. That's not the point. What I'm saying is, do a drawing of something. I think, in fact, the less it means, in some ways, the more it means. The less, obviously, I mean, if you drew, a mask or a roll of toilet paper, I don't know that it would be necessarily. It would seem a little on the nose. If Van Gogh had drawn like his severed ear, I don't think it would have had quite the same emotional impact. But you know what I mean. But I think the thing I'm hoping to convey to you is that you can look at your art, and again, it doesn't have to be every drawing that you make has to be some sort of massive therapeutic experience. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying it can be, though. It can be, and if you let it be, try and put the other concerns that we normally have when it comes to making art out of your mind. And that's how I feel about this drawing. I feel like it's less that I'm trying to perfectly capture the texture and lighting on these shoes. It's almost like this is becoming, because of the kind of all the details, it's becoming like just an opportunity for obsessive scratching, doodling, fiddling, nibbling, nail biting in the act of drawing. Like I feel like I want to spend hours and hours and hours on just making these little things out of this, just registering almost every anxious thought, registering every moment of hope. Let's put some hope into it. Here's some hope. Is that what it is? Or is it, I don't know. Is it hope being overshadowed by darkness? I don't know. I'm sure you art history majors will be glad to provide an explanation for me. You are therapists, can maybe, if you can be bothered, can feel like you can dissect it. But for me, it's just an urge, a feeling that I want to keep pecking away at these shoes. I've been doing it all yesterday evening during dinner. I started doing it again when I woke up this morning. I just feel like this is what I need to do. Okay, I'm going to take a break from it now. I want to do this on my own, honestly, without you. Sorry. Yeah. What is the point of doing this? Robert wants to draw toilet paper. By all means. You could draw toilet paper, you could draw on toilet paper. If you can spare a square. Whatever it is that matters to you. Nastya points out that Everyday Matters has shoes in it too. Of course, yes. I'm trying to remember. I think there's another pair of beaten up shoes in that too. Oh, I think I drew my son's shoes when he was very little. So yes, there's lots of things that are leitmotifs in my work. That when they do the coffee table monograph, somebody will point that out or not. So that's what I've been thinking about today. Just thinking about how we can use art to capture the meaningful experience we're having, and also to work through it, probably even more than capturing it, to work through it. Because I feel like as I'm working on these shoes, not when I'm talking to you on video, but when I'm working on these shoes by myself, these thoughts are flowing through me more easily. And I feel, and this, I'll be honest with you, I feel like I've been doing pretty well over the last couple months, and that concerns me. I felt that when my wife died too. I felt like there were times that were just terrible, but then there were a lot of times that were okay. And I worried that I wasn't in touch with my feelings, and that I was going to pay a weighty price for that later on. That somehow I was pushing those feelings into the darkness where they would fester and subjugate, and eventually I'd be infected by them. That they would come back 10 times worse because I hadn't dealt with them. And I started to go to therapy at that time because I needed to learn the tools for not pushing down my feelings, but bringing them out. And I realized that I could allow drawing, as it had in the past, to function that way in my life. And that's why I started to draw, I think, was to be able to go from just the crudest of feelings, like fear. Fear is just a primal physical feeling. But what about all the other feelings? What about the feelings of loss, of grief? I feel like those are things that we need to have tools for releasing. And that simply being in survival mode all the time, of doing okay, of having enough food, of filling your day and going to sleep, that we need to process what's going on. We need to make the time to do that. And we need to have the tools to do that. And we can talk to other people about it. In some ways, those conversations can become banal because, yes, we're all going through this. But some of these conversations aren't even verbalizable. They are just internal feelings that we don't have words for necessarily. But we might have lines and spots and colors and brushstrokes for them. So maybe that's something we have to explore. yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm not in a morose or you know, overly contemplative mode, but I am just thinking about how I can help to share, how I can help by sharing what I've experienced and the tools that I've developed, tools that are always needing to be resharpened, to help other people, and also to learn from you and your experience. Like, what have you dealt with it, you know? So, yeah. Robert says, coping by not coping. Yeah. That's called denial, right? My wife quoted a person who she knew who said, it's only a problem if you deal with it. Which is a horrific thought. But I understand what that means. Don't think about it. Don't think about it. Put on a happy smile. Get to work. You know? I've been thinking about the fact that when you watch like apocalyptic movies or zombie movies, there's never a character who's like, you know, this is a really great opportunity for me to finally come my novel. Or I wonder if I could raid that supermarket and maybe sell some of the things I find and kind of build on my marketing and entrepreneurial skills to turn this into a viable business. No. People are just shit scared and trying to hang on. You know, and yet we continue to do the things that we have done. And, you know, to make plans when we don't know what we're planning for. You know, so I think it's understandable. We want control. So we want to do these things. But I think we need to take the time to just look at ourselves and allow those inner things to come out. Not necessarily to overwhelm and take over, but at least to come out. All right, I don't know that I'm the best person to be giving you this advice, but that's kind of where I'm at today. Thank you for joining me. It is a beautiful day. I hope it's beautiful where you are too. You will spend a bit of time today drawing. I'm actually feeling really positive and optimistic about things. Again, might be the power of denial, but it does seem like things are shifting. I mean, they are going to allow people to like get haircuts here in Phoenix in the next few days. I don't know that I'm going to be doing that. I think my wife has volunteered to give me a haircut, although she's never given a haircut to anybody. But she did buy some scissors at Costco. So next time you see me, things might be different. I might be missing an ear a la Van Gogh. I don't know. We'll see. I might have a mohawk. No, probably not, right? Don't really have the material of that, but I don't know. We'll see. But yes, so I feel like things are shifting, things are changing. I don't know when I'm going to go back to New York. We'll see, but friends are still okay. So that's the most important thing. And we'll see what happens. I'm going to see you in 2 days. Tomorrow, Kosha is going to be releasing her video at noon. That's what we're doing from now on. Is if you want to just watch live drawing parties on YouTube with us, we will have one every day. Kosha will have one on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll have one on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So she'll also be doing hers on Instagram originally, but we will be re-releasing it. We will be putting it onto YouTube at noon. So if you want to do it at noon and chat about it while it's airing, that would be great. I'm going to be checking them out too. And then on Thursday I'm going to talk a bit about, well, Thursday in anticipation of Mother's Day coming up again. I'm going to be thinking and talking a bit about kind of where our creative legacy comes from. Like, what is it that makes us creative or not creative, or frustrates our creativity in our past, in our parenting, or we who are parents, what is our role in the creativity and expressiveness of our children? It's all, to me, an interesting subject and something to think about. So I'll be thinking about it next Thursday. So if you want to talk about it, join me, please. We'll also be drawing, and it will be a time and a great preparation for a weekend of celebration. I hope that you can see your mother in. I think we are going to try and visit my mother-in-law, who's in an assisted living place. We can't visit her, but we might be able to drive by and with the window. I'm not sure. Do something. We want to see her. So thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you in a couple days. Bye-bye.